Would a Biden administration policy, the economic policy platform that we know of right now, how far would it go towards helping your 12.5+ million members at the Afl-Cio?
Well, for the immediate need, it would help a lot because Vice President Biden is in favor of the package that Nancy Pelosi has been having in place since May. We have an immediate need right now because millions of people who are unemployed have lost their health insurance, and an important portion of what Pelosi put forward included assistance for workers to make their COBRA payments so they could keep their health insurance. A number of workers are in states that did not expand Medicaid, and Vice President Biden has made clear that in those states, he's going to fill the gap that had been in Obamacare that left those workers unable to afford health insurance. So there's that immediate need. And then, of course, the unemployment insurance system is in shambles, and that will take quite a bit to heal. But it's the immediate need that the Biden administration would have tended to already. And unfortunately, the Senate Republicans decided back in May that they would prefer to wait out the election before providing relief to America.
We know that at least 8 million people have fallen into poverty since the beginning of the pandemic. If we don't get something for some of these people until at least January, and that's assuming there's a turnover in power, what happens to the lowest rung of the economy, to those people that are already teetering on poverty?
Well, this is going to be a catastrophe, both for those people and for the economy. We know from the latest data from the census that a large share of people who rent are behind on their rent. And if they don't make their payments, there are a lot of landlords who are going to be very stressed. In the commercial real estate space, we know that there are a number of stores that are already straining because of the inability to contain the virus and get people into stores. They don't feel safe with the disease spiking again. And so those stores will be a risk for the commercial space. So we face a huge catastrophe if we don't do something by January. And our state and local governments are already strained and stressed beyond belief. And the rise in the virus right now is going to stress them even further because many of them were just in the process of trying to get kids back into schoolrooms. And that will be difficult to achieve without additional burdens on state and local governments to make those schools safe.
Professor, we've seen a massive demand shock to the economy that's likely to continue for some time. How much help should corporate America get versus consumer America? Should people receive cash, or should companies receive what some people like to call bailouts in order to hold on to their labor force and keep people in jobs when there is demand eventually?
Well, we learned, I hope everyone learned from the lessons of the Great Recession, that you really have to recover the economy from the bottom up. And so that's why it's so necessary to do the extension of the HEROES Act into the new year to catch up the consumers so that businesses can thrive. And we've learned from comparison of what's going on in Europe that has been much more aggressive in protecting payroll than the United States, that we've created a nightmare for ourselves in trying to reconnect workers to the workplace. That process happened, it appeared quickly in the US, but then it stalled, and now we see that job growth has slowed tremendously. Our ability to reconnect workers is going to be very difficult. So keeping your eye on the grassroots is really the way to make sure that corporations will be the safest coming out of this.
So you're saying send cash to homes?
Well, you want the people to pay their rents and pay their bills. That's how businesses make profits. So it's better to make sure that the bills get paid.
The Afl-Cio is generally opposed to international trade agreements. If there were to be a Biden administration, do we then just assume that we're not going to see that bilateral relationship with China improve, or at least that trade relationship improve anytime soon?
But that's not correct at all. The Afl-Cio does not oppose international trade. What we oppose are trade agreements that race to the bottom, that don't provide protection for the environment or protection for workers. What we object to is having corporations sit around the table and secretly negotiate deals that favor corporations. Trade is a winning proposition for everyone if you design it as a trade deal. What we have had are massive investment deals and tax loopholes written into agreements that have made it difficult for all countries. And you see countries around the world now trying to figure out how can they restructure international tax agreements, because these trade agreements are really disguised tax breaks.
So I have to mention the speculation that you might be a contender for a post, Labour potentially, or in the Treasury Department. I mean, have you been having conversations with the Biden camp?
No, I have not. I'm flattered if anyone would consider me, but I have not had any discussions.
Okay. There's also speculation that Bernie Sanders could be considered. That would be a funny sort of twosome, right? Would Bernie Sanders and Biden make a combination when it comes to, say, a Labour position in a Biden administration, potentially, were he to be elected?
I would welcome having a clear message sent as we go into a new administration, that this administration understands the extent to which our labor laws and our labor regulations are broken. And anyone who has a track record like Bernie Sanders as a champion for American workers would be a welcome lead.
I also want to ask you a little bit about your post at Howard, right? You had led the economics department, and you continue to be a professor at the economics department. Mm-hmm. Why, Professor, did it take until 2020 for us to have that conversation about racial equality in the economics profession?
I think, like the rest of the world, economists were shocked and dismayed at the horrible tape of watching Mr. Floyd be murdered, and the almost pornographic nature of the police officer staring directly into the camera was so disturbing that even economists had to question themselves. And of course, this was literally, blocks away from the Minneapolis Federal Reserve Bank. And the president there is a very sensitive person. He's committed to equality and has worked very hard in the Minneapolis area to promote equality. And I think the institute that he established is testament to that. And so I think part of this was, it was in his backyard, and it helped to ignite a conversation, because there were more powerful economists than just academic economists who have been deeply disturbed by that. And of course, we're very proud at my department, because Kamala Harris is a graduate of the Department of Economics at Howard University.
Yes, exactly. A very illustrious graduate, as is, of course, Shaka Hislop as well. We know the sporting field. But you're educating the sort of the pipeline, let's say. What's the thing policy-wise that you most want to impart to your students that they will need to sort of take out into the world and implement if there's to be any structural change?
Well, the key problem is that economists have made themselves slaves to marginal analyses. And as we've gotten better data and the ability to identify causal elements, we've gone deeper into that fetish of doing things on the margin. It makes you miss the bigger picture. And clearly, when you look at the situations that African Americans face, it's an institutional problem. It's not a problem on the margins. And it has diverted economists away from actually what's the obvious. And so I hope that our students at Howard will continue the legacy that other departments at Howard have contributed to, which is to get people to be well-educated, well-rounded, and to look at the total picture and not handcuff themselves into just looking at small parts of it.